Probably already live. We are live. So, welcome everybody to the Gardener's Workshop. We're having a live interview here tonight with my good friend Dave Dowling and
Hello.
a new friend to me, Tim Pierce of Running Hills Farm, and his partner in crime is Betsy, and she's actually tending to their sweet little girl who I got to meet just a few minutes ago, Cece.
Yep.
So, welcome, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, Betsy's upstairs, keeping the toddler tame, so I'll just hang out and chat for a little bit. Thanks for having us.
Oh, my pleasure. And hey, Dave, what's happening?
Spring. It's hard to believe that Mother's Day has come and gone, and it's almost summertime for everybody growing stuff. It's season's going fast.
Well, I would just say, one exception to that, Dave. It's summer here right now. We've broken 4 high temperature records so far this week. It might hit a 5th tonight for a high low. We're at 90 degrees right now, which is very, very unusual for southern Wisconsin. Normally it's maybe highs in the 50s, maybe the 60s, lows in the 40s, but this has just been an incredible week. Our soil temperature has actually increased about 20 degrees in 1 week. So we went from about 50, hanging out 40 to 50. We're actually at like 68, 69 degrees soil temperature, 6 inches down right now. It's just been a crazy season so far.
Right. That's warming up really fast. And I was going to say, most people don't actually check their soil temperature, so I commend you for that. Most people just think, oh, it's warm, it's cool, but you actually put a thermometer and check, which is great.
Yep, yeah, we actually have a pretty fancy weather station, but soil temp is key for some of those cool flowers.
Yeah.
So, friends, Tim is a new friend for me, and we came to know him he took Dave's course a couple of years ago, and of course, he also, I'm understanding, I haven't even asked you this yet, Tim. I assume that you have a continuing relationship with Dave, buying bulbs and such things.
Yep.
So he kind of keeps an eye on you and monitoring your business. And I'm really excited here tonight to learn more about your business. And so first off, tell us where you're located and what your setting is there. How big is your farm? Sure. What the setting is there in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so we're in Mount Horeb, which is just a little west of Madison, Wisconsin. So zone 5A, maybe 4B some winters, right? It kind of depends. And so we're on about 55 acres. Of that, though, we have about 25 in tillable. And then reduce that down even further, we probably grow actively on maybe about 4 acres, but we're pretty spread out. I have some slides a little later that I'll show you that just our beds, because we have the room, we spread out a little bit. It's a little bit longer walk and some more mechanization, but we're taking advantage of the space while we can.
All right. So are you like a lifelong farmer? Are you new to this scene? I did do a little stalking on you guys, and I did understand that Betsy's past, or actually she started out and she has a major in chemistry, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, she has a degree. And she couldn't find, gainful employment through that. So she actually went into event planning, not like doing weddings and stuff, but other types of, I think, corporate type stuff. Is that what I read?
Yep, some corporates. And then she did work at a high-end hotel as well. And so weddings and other sorts of events there. Yep.
And so I just love the way that she said that, becoming a flower farmer was like her chemistry and events, kind of meshing together. So Dave, what can you tell us about your experience with Tim? Have you been to his farm?
I haven't been to his farm yet. I've known him since he took my class. That's when I first found out about him. I have seen that his farm has gone from a beginning farm to one that seems like it's been there forever. It's big, it's organized, he's running it really well. And we'll throw in there also, I think he just was this fall that he retired from his other job, and then he's now working full-time on the farm. Until then, he was doing both. Betsy was on the farm, but he was also working a full-time job and working on the farm. So now both of them full-time on the farm, which that always makes a huge difference. You can accelerate the growth of your farm a lot faster if you're there full-time. But I've just seen the change of what he's growing, the quantities of stuff he's growing. has
Mhm.
exploded, and I'm sure he feels that when he goes to bed at night and he's tired and sore. But it's
So
just the farm has gotten from small to big really fast.
and that's really where scaling your business comes from, when you have more hands on board, particularly when it's your partner, the people at home, having the two farmers. So Tim, start us out by telling, what is the scene now? Who do you sell to? What is your customer base kind of looking at? And then I want to hear about what you're growing, and we can see some images perhaps.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll step back and say a little bit of background on me. So I come from a family with extended farm in there. So mostly in the dairy farming. So grew up, spent a lot of time milking cows on weekends and summer breaks and all that. And so when I got to college, I was like, I don't know, maybe I want to be a dairy farmer. So I ended up with a degree in ag science, and then completely pivoted out of the way and went into a public safety world. And so worked in public safety, but kind of the goal when Betsy and I started dating and got married was that, hey, like it's just kind of inside of me that I want to get into farming of some sort. And so we did a lot of searching, took Farm Beginnings, the program, and that kind of led us to like, flowers is kind of thing where I can still kind of do my traditional ag farming type thing, but also bring her chemistry event world together. And so that's kind of how we got to the flower farming place. So what we kind of focus on is right now is two markets. One is lesser is just our local farmers market in our village. And so that's kind of just more of a community connection type deal, because our village is only a few thousand people. We're pretty small here, but our greater county is well over 500,000 people. So our primary market though is wedding florists, and we sell to wedding florists in Milwaukee and then also in Madison. And so that's kind of really where our bread and butter is, where we focus on higher end flowers, specific colors towards wedding palettes, color of the year, and also stuff that doesn't ship well. Like for like Aromaris or Delphinium, that if you lay it down in a box and it gets thrown around in the truck or airplane, it's just not going to come out well compared to when you get something. For us, we deliver that in water, upright, with bracing to bring you like it's a good quality flower that you're going to get from us. So that's really where our focus is primarily, is on the wedding floral industry.
So do you grow in the field and in houses?
Normally, yes, but this year, just in the field. So we did have some high tunnels. We have some greater construction projects going on. So the high tunnels where the building is going to go. So they came down in the fall, and the building's being worked on right now. So we will get high tunnels back up here before fall for some season extension. But right now, it's just all field grown stuff. However, we're in the driftless region, and so in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and Iowa, there's kind of this quad section where the glacier came down and it stopped. And so there's a ton of hills and valleys and things like that. So we do some growing with using northern slopes and southern slopes to try to give us some different timing on crops.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's microclimates on the farm.
Yes. So tell us, so just kind of, you want to show us your PowerPoint and kind of give us a look at what you're doing there. I'm really intrigued that you're growing outdoors, because I'm an outdoor farmer. I don't have any houses at all. So I'm always intrigued by folks that are doing that. So let's see what you got. That's beautiful.
Yep. So that's Betsy and I. Obviously, we have some ranunculus that Betsy has. And so we are looking to the kind of the west, southwest. And you can kind of see it's a little bit blurred, but in the background there, how we have these rolling hills. And so that's what I was talking about, where we'll grow some stuff on northern slopes and southern slopes to help, play with timing a little bit just for field growing. Plus, we have the space. And so we're taking advantage of that. A couple of things. Go ahead.
Can I just interrupt you? You were sharing with us before we went on about what the current conditions are doing to your ranunculus harvest. You want to just share that with everybody? Because I know there are other people going through that.
Yep. Yeah. So generally, ranunculus will go dormant at about 60 degrees. And so they're a cool flower. They can take, 27, 28, maybe even 26, depending temperature wise on that tissue. and they just do great. But once that soil temperature and that air temperature starts getting warm, they like to go dormant. So in our case, like I said, our southern slope soil temp, or mostly southern, is about 70 degrees now. So that's essentially going to shut down those plants. Now, maybe it'll cool down if we get some rain and some cool temperatures. But if that soil temperature is going to stay like that, basically that'll be done for the season for Renunks. And so we haven't done this before. We're actually going to grow some in the fall. We've heard from other flower farmers that they've had success with fall grown Renunks, especially in northern climates. So we're going to give that a shot and see if we can't crank some of those out. But for the spring here, this heat wave is really just kind of throwing things apart.
And so you said y'all are at like 90 degrees right now, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's
really
crazy.
warm for May 12th in southern Wisconsin.
That's awesome. That's awful.
So a couple other things, you can see Claudia there. I love to grow in crates. It's something I learned from Dave. And so you can see on the left there, that's a field grown. And then on the right, we have those in crates. That's Camasia or Camasia. I don't remember how to pronounce it. Dave will maybe correct me on that. And so that's kind of a more unique bulb. You need to have a specific market. I wouldn't necessarily maybe put those in a farmer's market bouquet, but for a wedding florist that has the right color, they kind of a nice light blue palette or a dark blue, depending which variety you have, are kind of a neat little spike that can go along. And so we do grow those, and they've done pretty well. But I like that we grow them in the field, we grow them in crates, and in this case, in the photo here, it's crates in the tunnel. And so that gave us some blooms earlier in the season than we normally would in a regular year, not when it's 90 degrees in May. So another thing that we've really tried to focus on is perennials. And, I think it's pretty standard that everyone's like, hey, perennials, right? They're really nice and they come back, every year. And that's great. But I think, for us, we've been trying to focus on it. Last year was for a lot of people, a lot of life happened. And so, sometimes like you can't be around all the time and you miss harvests. And certainly with annual, like, hey, that's gone, it's gone. But your perennials, they come back next year. The other one for perennials that I like is just a resiliency with weather. And so, last year our Lysimachia didn't do so great because we had a drought. But this year it's coming back like gangbusters. And so that's really exciting to see that back. And we didn't have to do anything. We didn't get very much Lysimachia last year. But this, kind of one of those things that I really like about perennials is just they come back. So, they come back, regardless of really kind of how they were treated, they're pretty resilient. So a picture on the right there is a 5-gallon bare root. I think that's Annabelle hydrangea, if I remember correctly, that we planted this spring. And so just a massive bare root. Was really happy with how those came out. And so we're busy expanding our Woodies. The picture on the left, you see that giant crate that's actually 4 feet by 7 feet by 4 feet. That's what all those big 5-gallon bare root perennials or Woodies came in. And so, we did a group buy with a few other farms to get that. But, one of the things to think about is when you do these big buys, just make sure you got a way to get that off the semi. Even though it was only, it was less than 1,000 pounds, like that's pretty unwieldy. So just plan for that. And then you can see me there behind there's some boxes that say grow and sell. Those are vernalized perennials. So they have a program called Big and Burly, and they're vernal. So they start growing them, in this case, this would have been last summer, and then it goes through a winter, and then you get them when they're dormant in the spring and can put those in the ground. And I think I'll skip ahead here. This is what they look like here, of vernalized perennials. So it kind of looks, not so great, but the plant's just dormant. Put that in the ground, that'll do great. And there's all kinds. And so I really like those because they're just a huge solid plug. It's a perennial. You're going to get flowers out of it this year instead of having to wait for 2. And so that's just one of the things that we really like focused on is expanding our perennial Woodies and bulb crop, just to have that up and running. Because just, with the growing seasons, especially in the shoulder seasons and in the early spring, or, in the fall. You know, you just this whole weather thing is just kind of a little crazy, and you could do some stuff with Agribond, row cover, egg 19, or even plastic, double plastic, some other things, but it's only so far you can go. So we really try to kind of refocus our farm on expanding our perennial offerings, especially again things that are the delphiniums that could be higher end towards that wedding market.
I just want to throw in real quick about those big burleys from Grow and Sell. Because they have started those, they'll be starting those this summer to sell next spring. You don't want to wait until December to order them because they probably already sold all the stuff that they planted. So you want to try and order them this summer for next spring. So they actually have time to start the plants that you want, grow them this fall, overwinter them for the vernalization, then ship them to you in the spring.
Yep. Yeah. Good point, Dave. So I mean, if we think about the whole idea of growing and planning, and plants are one thing, but just the whole industry as well. If you need a tractor for next season, you should be talking to your implement or your dealer or whoever now. Same thing with coolers. We have friends that ordered a cooler in January and it's coming next week. So it's there's just things that like we need to. I think the world has pushed us to a place where we need to do much more pre-planning, and like Dave said, right, we're thinking of next spring right now. Really is like we need to think, hey, what do we want to put in for our crops? And so it's a lot more pre-planning rather than kind of the old just-in-time model, which used to work pretty well.
We have to think more. I can remember, it's like how bikinis show up in the store in January. When do you think those retailers were ordering them and the people that made them were making them? I mean, I'm a firm believer in ordering what's blooming now. If it's blooming now, you need to be ordering next year's, because that is true, Tim. I mean, you get caught. There's a lot of people suffering in a pinch doing without right now because we have to get rid of our old ways. You're so right.
Yep.
And the growers don't have extras anymore. They have their business is so busy they don't have extra space in the greenhouse to grow leftovers or extras. The houses are full with stuff that's pre-sold.
So Tim, tell us this: what zone are you? What winter harvest?
Yeah, we're 5A officially, although some winters I think we're really 4B, but 5A officially.
So it's sounding like to me that you're growing a lot of perennials and woodies. Do you do any annuals?
Oh yeah. Yep, all kinds.
Okay.
So Lysianthus is really kind of Betsy's thing that she really likes to do. My personal favorite, I love Celosia. Adgeranum's another great one. But really the Celosia, I just, all the different colors and the styles, the different series that there are. I call them like the Mohawk or the Brain style. So I really like Celosias. I'm
a Celosia addict, so I'm right there with you. I bet I'm growing 50.
There's so many different varieties that you want to try them all, and they're
Why
almost
not?
all of them are good. They're all good varieties.
Yeah.
So here's on the left there. That's a big pallet crate that came. So as I mentioned, I really like growing bulbs and even seeds. We grow sunflowers in crates. You can do a lot of things in crates, which is kind of unique. And sunflowers, that's a way to get yourself a nice small head on the sunflower is by, put 20, 30 sunflower seeds in a crate, and that'll give you a nice small head. Again, you think from the wedding industry, one, no pollen, but two, right, a wedding bouquet or even, a table thing, maybe somebody wants they don't want the big honking, 8-inch sunflower head. They want something really nice and small, maybe 2 inches or so. And so that really tight spacing will get you on that. But so like I said, crates, we usually haven't ordered enough bulbs to have 40 different bulb crates come, but when it's coming on a pallet anyways, I'll always ask Dave to help me get all those crates or fill out the pallet with empty crates, because I got to pay for the freight anyways, and so it's not that much more to get those crates, and they're $2.50 a piece or something like that. Much less expensive to get that way rather than just getting empty crate and having it shipped just empty. That's just really inefficient for that. And then so on the right side, just a picture of bulbs, right? The middle bottom, that's a fritillaria bulb. And then kind of the lower left corner, the upper right corner, that's Aramaris. I love Aramaris. I got a picture of it later on. It's a great spike. they're just huge plants that come back and just work really well for large installations or large events. And then the yellow bags, I think, are in allium. I don't remember what kind. Probably purple sensation. We like growing that. Everyone seems to like purple sensation. And then same thing with the lower right. I think that's another allium there in the crate.
Tim, what is your first and last frost date? All this just gives people context of your
Yeah.
season.
So it kind of depends. This year, generally, it's about mid-May or so for last frost. But last year we got nailed on May 27, 28 with 26 degrees. And that was brutal on our grape crop, which you can actually see. We do have a small vineyard as well. Lost 90% of our grapes, which I'm glad we grow flowers and not just grapes. And so, but kind of mid to late May is generally that last frost. And then first frost, right around the 1st of October, kind of give or take.
Okay. And one other question that I know we're going to hear here, and I do have a question from somebody, but my question is, do you have any tips to share? How did you connect with your wedding florist? You're talking a lot about high end and wedding work. How did you initially make that connection with them?
So 2 ways that we've done that. One is just fun story. So when Betsy and I got married, we had a wedding florist who was kind of brand new. We were actually her first wedding ever. They grew local flowers and then got into wedding. And so they did our flowers. So fast forward a few years when we're starting to do this, they actually ran a local wholesale route. And so that was a really nice way for us to get in and start getting product in kind of like a really non-committal, non-high pressure way. We started selling into their local wholesale. And so through that, we the partnership kind of grew. We actually started doing deliveries, and then we actually took over the wholesale. So now we operate a local wholesale, and then we have about 4 or 5 other farms that sell into us, including that one that they actually did our wedding flowers when we got married. So kind of full circle with that, which is kind of a neat story. But then the other one,
It's
Lisa,
awesome.
Was I think it was the beginning of last year when the whole the international wholesale market was disrupted. It was Central and South America, and you started a Facebook group connecting local florists and farmers. And so actually one of our best customers or florist partners that we work with, I actually connected with on that Facebook group. And so she had said, hey, anyone from Wisconsin? And I said, I wave my hand and say, hey, we are. And so we connected. Her name's Lisa as well. And that's just become a great relationship. She works really she's the president of the association in Wisconsin. And so we work with her pretty hand in hand and did some judging through FFA with her, Betsy has. And so that's another great place where we've gotten some connections, especially, like I said, that one example comes right to mind is like that Facebook group that was put together for the whole wholesale disruption got us one of our best florist partners.
And that's awesome. So that is a Facebook group. And I think Jessie is on here, one of our crew members. She'll probably put the link for any of you that's watching this where you can join that. And I believe the name of it is now Florist Farmer Connection. And it's just what he just said. It's where flower farmers are and we're florists looking for local flowers. There's no formal way to do anything. That's just a group of people looking to connect. Tim, that is a great story. I hadn't heard that. That's really helpful. That's nice to know. Thank you.
And what I would do is, I would just go on there, hop on the group, every month or 2 or so, and I just type Wisconsin or Madison or Milwaukee and see if there's new posts, and that would just kind of be a nice way to reconnect. And so that's kind of what I was doing, but it was really a success story for us.
There it is. It's the Florist Farmer Connection. You can just search Facebook for that. You have to request to join, but the people that are in charge, so it's a good chance you'll get in. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, you bet. So some other things here on the left side, that's alliums that you see in a raised bed there. We had originally done Lisianthus in that bed and then rotated that out and then planted allium bulbs. And so that's that green foliage that you see coming up. I think we'll be harvesting alliums probably next week. Buds are all the way up, haven't opened yet, but they're nice and tall. With this heat blast, everything's kind of just like rocketed out of nowhere. So that's what, and then those are specifically, I believe they're Purple Sensation, if I remember the right place. And so you can see some of those Purple Sensation on the far right picture of what that bulb is. So there's Purple Sensation allium, there's some lilac in there, looks like some Camassia, a hosta leaf. Triticale, I love cover crops. I know we're not in the annual world, but cover crops do great for kind of fillers and foliage. Triticale, oats, sorghum, Sudan grass does really good. So you'd be surprised out of kind of traditional ag crops that are maybe wheat is another good one that like florists like there's a use for them and they're really neat like spikes that come along. And then center there we have lilies, of course. Lizomachia is kind of that white spike type flower. A calla in there, of course. There's a sunflower, and then and that might actually be crimson clover. So some clovers that we'll harvest as well. Again, cover crop, but florists there's a need for them.
So Tim, do you grow peonies?
We do have peonies in the ground.
Okay.
We go ahead, Dave.
No, I don't. You don't have them ready to harvest yet, I don't think.
Yeah, so I think we'll have some stuff that we planted either fall of 19 or maybe a spring of 20. I don't remember that we might take a few, but we did a large planting of peonies last year. So that'll be a couple years off before we start harvesting on them. But we're very excited to have those come about when they're ready.
Your forest will be happy too.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, Tim, I'm just going to stop you for just a minute. And so I want to share, we have a lot of new people coming on, and we have Facebook and YouTube watchers, and I want to just welcome everybody. So Dave and I'm Lisa Mason Ziegler, if we've never met before, and Dave Dowling and I are longtime flower farming friends. And of course, Dave is one of our instructors, and Tim, we came to know through Dave's course, which is bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more. And Dave was, and Tim was a student. Did we decide it was 19?
20.
Yeah, we think summer of 2020.
Yep.
Summer of 2020. Yep. And so we've asked Tim here to just kind of share what he's done with his farm. And so Tim, is there anything before we just move on through, for folks that just don't, what I think happens for me is we just don't know how much we don't know and how much easier it can be and how many mistakes you can avoid learning from somebody that's done it, right? I mean, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to stop sharing here for just a second. Part of it is just, confidence building and just small questions, so I ran out to the field just before we started chatting here, and I grabbed, 3 daffodils or narcissus from our field. And it's just the confidence to know, like, when should I harvest this? This guy, 2 blown open, say this one, bring it in your house. This one, not ready yet. But this one, it's maybe just a hair pass, but this is the right thing. And so I think one of the real benefits is just like getting the confidence to know, like, hey, this is the one to do. And so that's what I found, talking to a lot of people and ourselves included, is just like having the confidence to know, like, hey, this is the right time to harvest it. Let's get these now. This guy, right, I'll check back tomorrow. He should be opened up then and ready to harvest. And so it's really a confidence boost is a kind of my main takeaway.
And isn't that with anything? Fear is what holds us back, right? Yeah. My saying is, if you're not a little scared every day, then you're not growing, and yeah. So,
the good news is, so, right, you missed this, it'll be back next year, so it's okay.
That is so very, very true. That is so true.
We'll fire back up here. Let me know when you have the photos back up.
Oh, there you go. I'm coming.
All right. So I talked about growing in crates. And so here again, zone 5A, we get real cold in the winter, definitely, there's times, -10, -20 temp, in addition to wind chill on top of that. So there are some bulbs, they could care less, right? Alliums, peonies, not really a bulb, but, there's winter stuff that, like, it can get as cold as it can get, like, they're fine, they thrive on it. Other stuff, maybe not so much. Ornithogalum is a good example of something that would not overwinter here. But there's some tricks you can do. So on the left there, that's actually inside of our cooler. We have a CoolBot cooler. And so those are just crates with bulbs. And then what we do is we put a little space heater in there, and there's a outlet that you can buy that turns on at 35 degrees and it turns off at 45. And so that's kind of a way to trick some things, especially for the colder climate growers, that you could just keep that stuff in there 35 to 45. It gets the cooling that it needs, but it doesn't get cold enough where you're going to kill those sensitive bulbs like ornithogalum. And then that's a way for you to actually grow them and offer them in your area. And
so they think they're in Virginia, but they're really in
Wisconsin. Yeah,
Wisconsin.
Exactly. Yep.
So Tim, I can't see looking at that picture. So those are planted bulbs in those crates, correct?
Yep. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So what I take a newspaper and put that on the bottom of the crate, and then we get some compost, a mix that we get here locally, put a couple inches on the bottom, put your bulbs in there and whatever pattern, the spacing that it needs. Some tulips, you can load that thing up, almost, egg crate style, really, close to each other. Some other stuff needs a little more room, and then cover that all the way over top with soil or compost again, and then put that in your cooler, and then you grow your bulbs. So these were out of the cooler for maybe a week or two. And so it's mainly tulips on the right, and then probably the Camassia or the Leucosium on the left there that you can see coming up through the soil for these winter bulbs. And so that also gets us a little advanced. So maybe things aren't quite warm enough out in the ground where these would naturally emerge, because we took them out of the cooler and they're getting a warmer air temp, and in here they're kind of on concrete and asphalt. They're coming alive much quicker, so it gets us to market a little bit faster as well.
And once you have your tunnels back up, you can move them from your cold cooler right into the tunnel for nighttime temperature protection.
Yep, exactly.
I think once you learn the process of growing in crates, it is hard to go back to growing in soil. I grew lilies and tulips in crates for a few years. And it was amazing to be able to do that. It's very different and very successful and very easy to incorporate into your system.
Yep. We'll do a combination of some in crates and some out in the field, again, trying to extend our season as much as possible for some of these offerings. Obviously, Mother's Day is usually the big goal, especially up here. If it's warm enough, trying to get enough product that's ready, tulips or daffies that we can have available. And so that's kind of the goal. And between those two, again, depending whatever Mother Nature decides to throw at us, usually we can hit that mark with one of the two of those options.
That's pretty impressive.
We talked about those. So just a couple field shots. So on the left, as I mentioned really earlier on, like we kind of spread out. And so those are just some annual beds that we have there on the left. But you can see there's room to drive a 8-foot RTV or golf cart or whatever you need, piece of equipment through there in between those beds. But kind of plenty of room to get around there. And then on the right side, you can see those big spikes. Those are Arameris. That's a tiny little bucket. But those spikes,
you need a taller bucket.
Yeah, we have 7-gallon buckets that we normally harvest those into. But it was in the evening and I was lazy or something and just ran up there with that little guy. That was all I could find.
But they can be 4 feet tall, which is amazing with those.
Yep.
So here, can y'all see the question? Dave?
Yeah,
and Tim?
Somebody's asking the Burley. Burley was just the brand name of Grow and Sell, Big Burley, and they just grow a lot of different perennials under that trade name of Big Burley, and they're basically in a 2.5-inch pot, and 32 in a tray.
So it's really just a big burly plant. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's that photo in the middle that Betsy's holding. It's a pretty big plug, not your standard a 280 or a 128 or even a 72, right? This is it comes in a 32, big. So it's a pretty big solid plant. A lot of root structure you can see on that photo as well. So that thing has been established.
But one thing to remember is they do come in looking like that, half dead. I've had people before throw them away and want a credit. I'm like, no, they're just dormant. Look at the roots. They're beautiful plants. They're just,
Yep.
it's still wintertime for them. They're coming out. They're
Yep.
going to grow and be fine.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think it's probably because we do have so many new people in the industry that it's certainly a good idea, perhaps after you place your orders for whatever you're ordering, to do a little investigation of what you might receive. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like how big should the bulb actually be?
Right.
You know how there's some big bulbs and there's little bulbs. The little bulbs are supposed to be little bulbs, you know, and we see
Right.
people getting alarmed, and it's just from not knowing. And so that's a great point.
Well, with the plugs, people are often used to getting Lysianthus plugs in April or May where they're big leafy plants. And, you know, then they get this big burley that's a big chunk of root, but dead looking leaves, and it just worries them.
Yep.
Right, right.
It's just asleep. It'll wake up. Put it in the ground. Give it a little water. It'll be fine.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. So the big Aromaris spikes. Again, that's been, we've sold every single Aromaris that we grow. We have sold, and we significantly expanded our Aromaris planting last fall. And it'll be the same thing again. So with the florists that we work with, love those big spikes for installations. I think last year they were used at a Harley Davidson conference or something like that, because they had the orange color like you see in the middle. So that actually worked really good. But those have been really successful for us.
Is those plants just get bigger and better every year and put up more stems per plant. That's
what I was going to ask.
Had 100 stems this year, next year have 120 on the same plants. They're kind of like the peony. They take a couple of years to get going, but then they're really productive.
And so, Dave, what zone are they winter hardy to? I mean, who can plant them?
Supposed to be zone 5 and warmer, like 5 to 8. So he's on the borderline up there. If he had a really cold winter or one that was really wet, although his land is mostly on a hill, so he's not going to ever have things sitting in a puddle in the wintertime. So that's an advantage to growing on a slope and on hills, as opposed to flat land like you have, Lisa. If you were a colder zone and flat land like you have, you'd have trouble because they would rot in the wintertime.
Right.
And sitting in water.
Right. Yeah, I could see that they'd be a high demand, particularly with big installations. They're beautiful, Tim.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
And then I guess last photo, at least that I have for now. So on the left, callas. I love growing callas as well. Grow those in crates. They certainly wouldn't overwinter here. And so just lots of good colors. Certainly the yellows sell a little less in the wedding industry, but we use that at farmers market. But those whites do really well. Some of them have a little bit of a pink blush to them almost on occasion, and others are just kind of the pure white. But those have been really well accepted, and they're super easy to grow. Again, you put 5 in a crate, 7-inch crate, and just keep them cool, and they come up and give you great big tall stems, and they're just solid plants, and they've been really happy with them. And then in the back there, behind those callas, you can see some delphinium. So there's some blues and whites. We've actually, they're really big, but those Pacific Giant variety, our florists love those. So normally they're kind of like unwieldy and really hard for people to like kind of move out. But for us, for whatever reason, the florists that we work with, they're like the bigger the better. So we're growing just big stuff: Aromaris, Pacific Giant delphinium, just lots of tall spikes.
And
those hotel lobby flowers.
Yep.
And they can hardly get them now. Shipping has gone through the roof, which means shipping flowers, they're cutting them shorter and shorter to get them in smaller and smaller boxes.
Yep.
And that was my niche here too, Tim. I mean, I would sometimes have to like clear my truck to cut stuff and lay it down to get it to the people in time. So that's a really great point for people that are selling to florists. I do have two questions. Actually, I have 3 questions from people that we're going to take these. These are related to kind of Dave's cup of tea. So Chris is asking, is there any information for bulb wholesalers for small growers? So Dave, tell us the story on that.
Yeah. Ball Seed has a whole division called ColorLink, and that division was set up about 12 years ago to sell to smaller customers who aren't going to be spending thousands of dollars a year. They may only spend a couple hundred. As long as you buy in the quantities that, if you're looking for bulbs, that Edney supplies them in, which is 100 tulips of variety, 50 daffodils. So it's not huge numbers. you can place an order. So all you would do is you would call the ColorLink office, 800-686-7380. I'll type that in the questions. And they can set up an account over the phone and you can place orders that way. Ball Seed has a cut flower webpage. It's ballseed.com/cutflowers. And there's a lot of catalogs and stuff on there.
And I will say that because we do a lot of business with Ball. Ball is a huge company and it is definitely intimidating and it's really hard to get to the wrong area for what you're really looking for. So that information that Dave just gave you is really, really useful. So check that out. And what I want to say is, I'm going to ask Dave this next question too. This is the kind of information, Dave's course, Perennials, Bulbs, Woodies, and more, is a course that is so jam-packed with this kind of information. I mean, Tim, it's like, we call Dave the walking encyclopedia. Would you confirm that for us?
Yeah, just, it's like the dollar bill, but with Dave, in Dave we trust.
It's
and we've taken, a few handfuls of courses just from a lot of different providers, but the references that you get, we actually made a folder in our Google Drive that's called Dave, because it kept being like, hey, we need that handout from the section on lilies or the section on lesser bulbs or something like that, and like I need to log back in and download them. So we finally made a folder like Dave, and so now I know it's like, hey, I need, like, how many frees you go in a crate, Betsy? Is like, go to the Dave folder.
It's so true. And I want to just share this with you guys. So first off, if you don't know, our online courses, the way they work, once you buy them, you have access to them for life. That means you can go back and watch everything over and over and over again. So Dave's course is arranged literally like a book, like a chapter in a book. Buy the flowers. You can just go to the table of contents or the library and actually do what Tim was just telling you. And we are now in the process. We just completed my course. We are now redoing the syllabuses of all of our other courses, kind of following that format so that people can just go as a quick reference to do what you're talking about, Tim.
Yep.
Because, that's where the value is. You get so overwhelmed. There's so much information. You feel like you're going to just die when you're watching it. You'll never remember it all. But it's 6 months from now or a year from now, when you go to do that you think, how many bulbs go in that crate, or where do I buy them, or what variety did he say was the best? Totally and completely priceless. So before I let him go on and I present this next question, Dave's course only registers once a year. It's June 9th through the 13th. Then the class starts July 8th, and it's 6 weeks. And that means once a week for 6 weeks, you get a bunch of new classes. You have opportunity to watch them. And at the end of the week, you get a live Q&A with Dave Dowling. So if there's anything that he doesn't cover, you get to ask him that question. Plus, we have closed Facebook group that you pretty much are in for the rest of your life. There's a class group, and then you get to join the alumni group. So it's like you're Dave's child for the rest of his life. It's true. So anyway, over at thegardenersworkshop.com, you should sign up for his wait list. That way we won't let you miss registration. The class is $595, and it is a bargain. And I can say that we hear from people all the time how many mistakes he helped them avoid. So if you're enjoying this is a BB in the Astrodome of the information. All right. So here's a perfect question that Dave would have answered in class. She is a Zone 5B gardener. She just received ranunculus corms, much too late to plant. When would you suggest I pre-sprout for fall blooms, or can I store them until early spring 2023?
Right. If she's in Massachusetts growing them in the field, she does need to wait till next spring to plant. She can't plant in the fall because it's too cold over the winter. If she has a high tunnel, she can put them in the tunnel and plant them and pre-soak in September, plant in the tunnel in October, or just hold them and soak them in late January to soak them and get them planted outside in the tunnel by the first week of March, or out in the field in early March. But the ranunculus can be held for one season. It's not like a plug that's going to dry out and go bad. They're already dried out, the ranunculus corms. You can save them for one season and plant them next year. You don't want to plant them now because, like Tim was saying, his soil's so warm they're not going to grow. Or if they did sprout now, they die off in another month. They
Right.
wouldn't do anything. And if you try to grow them in the summer, it's still too hot. They won't grow when the soil's above 60 degrees. So you couldn't go out and plant them in August hoping for fall flowers. Unless,
All right.
like Tim might want to do, where he's going to plant them in crates and put the crates in a cooler and grow them in there and keep the soil cool to have
Yep.
flowers in the
You can
fall.
do that.
Because you can grow ranunculus over the winter in a heated greenhouse, a heated but cool, with cool nights, and have them blooming by Christmas.
Wow.
But for the person who has them where she's just gotten them in, you don't want to plant them now, just save them to plant them next season.
And
Store
so
them
how
warm
would
and dry.
you hold those?
Warm and dry. Just if they're in a paper bag or a mesh bag, just put them on a shelf in the office or that in the house.
Okay. All
Warm
right.
and
And
dry.
so here's a question. How far apart do you plant delphiniums?
Are you asking Tim or me?
I'm asking you, Dave.
Normally, well, you can plant them about 12 inches. So about 1 per foot. You can squeeze a little bit more if you had to, where it's pressed for space. But you don't want them too close because their leaves do get pretty broad at the base of the plants.
Okay.
We push it a little bit, but 12 inches.
Well,
So
12, 8 to 12. You don't want to do like 4 or 6. That's just getting really
Yeah.
crowded.
right.
The other thing I want to say is the delphinium. I don't know if you're getting those from the big burleys, but there are delphiniums that are first year flowering, so they don't have to be big burleys.
Correct.
You can get some of them and get fresh plugs in or new plugs in March and plant them in early spring, and you have flowers blooming in July, late June and July. And it's the summer heat that kills delphinium, not the winter cold. So they should be perennials at where Tim's at without any problem.
Yeah,
It's the
we
hot,
treat
dry
them like
summers that
hardy
kill them.
annuals. So, Tim, I wanted to ask you this when I was looking at your slideshow. Do you guys pretty much use landscape cloth everywhere? Or
So we're it's just Betsy and I kind of working. She takes care of the route, which is Tuesdays to Milwaukee and then Wednesdays to Madison, so about a half a day there. Farmers markets on Thursday afternoons, and so, but it's just the two of us. So we really focus because we have a little bit of room to stretch out, and it's trying to mechanize where we can, and then also work with our materials. So a 300-foot bed is really long. But I can lay a 300-foot bed in about 90 seconds. So after I prep the soil, so with a rain flow fabric layer, and so we get pre-burned fabric that we have with the holes already burned. So it's kind of this balancing act. But the fact that I can not outside of doing the bed prep with the spader and tilling, I can lay that bed in 90 seconds and we're ready to plant. And so that's where we've kind of balanced, like, what can we do really efficiently that makes up for some of those other inefficiencies.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. I have a rain flow too. I mean, we use a different kind of film, but you weigh the facts. Do you hire more help and still not be as efficient as a piece of equipment can be?
Right. Yep.
And that's one of the things that it just helps you scale and ramp up your business. So Elizabeth, I don't know if y'all see the comment, Dave's course is the best investment. I use it daily. I mean, it is so true about people talk about having Dave in their back pocket. And I will say that Dave did an interview this morning with Nicole of Flower Hill. I mean, a lot of y'all I know follow her on YouTube, and she did a tulip talk with Dave this morning. And so what we just hear over and over is we call Dave the encyclopedia, because no matter what you ask him about, he just spills out all this information, and that's what's priceless in an instructor. And Dave has the desire to empower and help other people, and can't recommend his class enough.
Yeah.
And again, it registers June 9th through the 13th. It's $600. We do offer a payment plan if you need that to split it into 2. And class starts July 8th. And you're thinking right now, why in the world would a flower farming class run in the season? Tell us, Dave.
Well, we do it in the summertime because a lot of the stuff I talk about, if you want to put that into action and grow those crops, that's when you need to know about growing it. Either ordering plugs for the spring or the last minute order of bulbs for the fall. If you took the class in January, it's going to take you another year before you can do all that stuff. So we do the class in middle of the summer, because that's when you need to be ordering some of that stuff to get it planted on your farm.
I mean, the number one, we always do a survey at the end of our classes to say, hey, tell us like it is. What would help improve, da, 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 da. What was the number one request for Dave's course when it used to run? Wasn't it January, February, Dave?
It was January,
It used
February,
to
yes.
run during the down flower farmer time, right? And that was the number one request, for it to run so that people would have their claws in him live while they're ordering, while they're planting, perhaps. So that really, really helped. So Chris says, I am hopefully taking the class. Is there a certificate or something given at the end? There's so many book-oriented people asking if I did horticulturist or something annoying. We give you something that you can display. I mean, I don't know what you call it. It's a little emblem that says, that you completed flower farming school with the name of his course, that you can display on social media or on your website. And that's inside your course. So it's always there that you can download it. But thank you for asking that. So guys, we're coming in on the end of our time together. So Tim, I'm just so thankful. Tim's farm name, for anybody that wants, tell people how they can connect with you guys through social media if they want to learn more about
Instagram. We're Running Hills Farm. That's a story about how Betsy and I met. We actually met literally running hills. So, and it works perfectly because we're in the Driftless region, but hit us up on IG, Running Hills Farm, at Running Hills Farm. I talk a lot about, I do stories almost every day and just talk about farming in general, all kinds of stuff, soil temp, weed management. I didn't say control, I said weed management, because you can't really control those. So just other things that are happening that's going on, just kind of general sense, but happy to have a conversation and share whatever.
And I feel pretty confident. I didn't ask Tim this, but if somebody has a question about Dave's course, I'm pretty sure you could get a fair, honest answer from Tim if you DM'd him or reached out to him. Actually, most of our students, that are active on social media, always raise their hand and say, hey, if anybody wants to know. Our courses are where the rubber meets the pavement. It's the stuff that can really help you understand and build a profitable business. That's our goal. That's the whole purpose of us creating these courses. I started with the foundation, and then people wanted to grow bigger. So we brought Dave in his area, and then Steve and Gretel with their green and hoop house growing, which will explode your brain. Have you seen those stock images they've been posting on
amazing
Instagram?
Stuff they're growing? Yes.
Oh,
they're
it's
stock, they're ranunculus. Yes.
I stopped our business in the middle of fulfillment. I said, y'all all have to come here to my phone and look at this stock. We all just stood there with our mouth open. If y'all don't know who we're talking about, Steve and Gretel Adams of Sunny Meadows Flower Farm. And they do a lot of Instagram posting. They have figured it out. They are like, what are they, Dave? They're between like 16 or 17 years growing now, I think, isn't it?
It's, I think 12 to 15, but yeah, it's been a while. They're young. They're just like 32 years old. So it's not been that long.
But they're tired. My goodness, they are doing such a great job.
So
and
yes.
You know what else I have my hat off to them for is they are constantly pivoting their business. You know what I mean? It's like, they're like, I think, if I'm right, I think they just gave up supermarkets or farmers markets or something.
When COVID hit, they just dropped the grocery stores because they dropped them. And then when they went on the back, they said, no, we found another way to sell our flowers, and didn't go back to the grocery stores.
And, it's just, So anyway, they teach a greenhouse hoop house course with us, and it's just another packed course that is just fabulous. And the point I'm trying to say to you people is that our courses have a purpose, and that purpose is to share our experiences that we've had through usually at least a minimum of a decade of successful flower farming. Some of us more than that, unfortunately. A couple of decades, because we're old people now. And we just appreciate you checking out thegardenersworkshop.com. When you go to an online course, one of our school pages, you can sign up to get on a wait list. And all that means is that you sign up to get on that specific instructor's email list, which means any resources, like you would have gotten an email about Dave doing this tonight. So we recommend it, and we'd love to have you. And if you don't take it this June, you have to wait for another year. And the question I always ask myself, I just did it today because I signed up for a little short course in business, is, all right, if I don't do it, how am I going to change my business a year from now? You know what I mean? It's like, what am I just going to keep doing the same old stuff? So thank you guys.
Yep.
Anything you want to say to close this out, Tim or Dave?
No, I think, like you said, Lisa, this is it, for us. It was a huge confidence builder. It's a great reference. It really is, like, in some of the pictures I showed, right? That's right from the class about those growing techniques that are really easy to implement, and you could definitely take advantage of. We certainly have.
Yeah, I just like to say I'm always happy to help people be successful, and that's what I want everybody to be: successful and happy in their farming.
And a course allows us to put it all together, tons of it, and to put it in a way that people can actually reference it.
Right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Tim, say goodnight to Betsy and Cece. It was such a pleasure to meet her. She's cute as a button.
Yeah.
Cute as a button. And maybe someday we'll come out to Wisconsin, Dave. We'll just have to do a road trip. So thank you, everybody on YouTube and everybody on Facebook. And till we meet again, friends. Ciao.
Good night. Thank you. Bye-bye, Tim. Bye, Lisa.